just have always just really loved and admired women. I just think they're just incredible, just so full of spark and potential and the most amazing things, love and kindness and just everything. I think just overall, this is my me era. I wanted not just to live. I didn't want to quilt for the rest of my life.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Second Half Chronicles podcast. I'm your host, Carrie Olson. On this podcast, we will explore what the second half of our lives are really about. So join me as I interview women who are fulfilling dreams, experiencing passions, and targeting goals as they approach, shift, and thrive in the second half of their lives. We hope to provide insight and inspiration to those who might have lost a little of themselves along the road of life, which is most likely all of us. But with more wisdom and experience, we will navigate the second half of our lives together. Hi, welcome back to Second Half Chronicles podcast. We are just happy to be here and so excited to continue this conversation about the second half of our lives. Today, I have April Little, and she is a transformational coach with Paradigm Lift Coaching. And we were connected from a mutual friend that we have that thought, oh my gosh, you guys are kind of going toward the same goal here, kind of lifting and talking about people in the second half and how they might be, transitioning and doing different things. You'll tell us more about yourself. But anyway, so I'm so glad that Kristen introduced us, and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Carrie. I'm so excited.
Well, okay, so why don't we start off, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Just kind of, maybe a little background, and then we're going to go into...
I'll just tell you a little bit about me, kind of the basic things that everybody always says. Obviously, my name is April Little. I do have a company called Paradigm Lift Coaching. And my husband and I both actually coach. So my husband and I coach marriages, and then I coach women. And and I also am a personal stylist. My personal stylist name is April Zariah. And also I'm a mother of 4. I have 4 beautiful children, 3 adult daughters and a teenage son. And then I have 1 beautiful little grandbaby, a little granddaughter, who's exactly 1.5 years old tomorrow. And been married to my husband for 29 years. So we're in our 30th year together. And yeah, that's a little bit about me. And I grew up in Texas. I'm a Texas girl, born and raised, and probably will never leave. Not willingly. I will never leave willingly. So yeah, that's just a little bit about
so
me.
A little side note, which I just let April know, I was born and raised in Houston, Texas. And so that was kind of a fun little connection. And I ended up moving here to Las Vegas, Nevada when I was in middle school. So I'm still in the Las Vegas Valley and I love it, but I always think about Texas as my childhood home. So it's fun.
Yeah, we literally grew up less than a couple hundred miles from each other probably. So that's pretty crazy.
Well, okay. So Second Half Chronicles, thank you so much for joining us. Okay. So what we're going to talk about today, I want to talk about your first half just a tiny, tiny bit. So this question I have here is, do you have any influences in your first half that you view as positive or helpful or supportive? That would be really helpful to, I think, some of our listeners. If you want to share something that might have been more like heavy or contrary in your first half that might help someone, you can, but just talk to us about some influences that you have from your first half.
Yeah. So obviously I coach women, and I am just like a huge fan of women, a big women's advocate, if you will. And I think a lot of that comes from, I grew up in a household. There are 8 children in my family. I'm one of 8. And 5 of us are girls. And so I had 4 amazing sisters growing up. And then, and also 3 amazing brothers. But the ones that grew up kind of around me, I have 1 older sister and 3 younger sisters, 2 of whom were really close to me in age. So we sort of grew up in like a little group of 4. And so they were a huge influence on my life. And then I also had obviously tons of girlfriends and things growing up, but I also was like an avid Girl Scout growing up. And I mean, like, I was the crazy avid Girl Scout. So I was the Girl Scout that was still a Girl Scout when no one else was a Girl Scout. So, like, well into my
Oh,
teens, probably like into high
I
school.
didn't even know.
Yeah, exactly. And I even, like, after I graduated high school, I even went and was a counselor at a Girl Scout camp after high school. So I was like a real Girl Scout. Like, I was not playing around. And I think I just have always just really loved and admired women. I just think they're just incredible, just so full of spark and potential and the most amazing things, love and kindness and just everything. And in terms of, like, maybe like positive negatives, so I really coach women, try to coach women into their potential and into living a life of bliss. And I think one of the reasons why I'm so into that and why it's so important to me is because I saw for a lot of years, like my own mother, who, again, she was a mom of 8 kids. That's a huge job all by itself. And, but she sort of did lose herself in that, I feel like I growing up now, I will admit fully that this is coming from the perspective of a very egotistical child, like all children, we're all egotistical at that age. And so I really viewed my mom kind of as like, that's all she was. That's all she did. You know what I mean? And I'm sure she probably did have some interests in some things that were her own. But when you have 8 children, I'm sure, because I've never had 8 children, I only had half of that many. But when you have 8 children, I imagine that that's very consuming, certainly by, of your time and things like that, and a lot of your energies. And so I never saw much of her actual personality. And I feel like she did kind of lose herself in the role a bit. And so it wasn't until I grew up and I had left the house and my parents ended up getting divorced and my mom went back into the workplace. And that's really when I saw my own mother's potential kind of coming out. Um, I saw that she was very, very smart and she could pick up learning things really quickly and she excelled in her job and she really kind of came into herself much more. And you kind of saw some of her own personality coming out more and more. And I think that that's one of the reasons why I'm just so passionate about helping women come out of those places. And now I work with actual high achieving professional women. So kind of the opposite of what my mom was when I was growing up, but what my mom became when she got older. And so that's really who I work with the most. But you see the same kind of thing with these women because what they kind of have focused on more is their careers a lot of times. And so some of those other things have still gone by the wayside in the same kind of way. I mean, they still have families and things like that, but their kind of main focus, their big goal has been more related to their jobs. And so they still have sort of lost themselves a little bit along the way. And I love to help them rediscover really who they are, what their passions are, and to help them design kind of a life of their dreams instead of living to work, if that makes
Oh
sense.
my goodness. I love that. You talked about your mom getting lost in motherhood, and I think we kind of just automatically look at mothers as though it's like something natural and this is just what they do and it's what they do. And then when you become a mother, you're like, wow, this is hard work and I guess this is who I am right now. And so I
hard.
love that you were able to see as an adult some of your mom's talents and her things shining through. You're like, oh, there she is. That's her. That's my mom. That's awesome. And then earlier you mentioned the women that you work with. They're usually very successful women in the workforce. And you said some of the things they've lost along the way are maybe, I don't know, relationships. I think you mentioned a couple of things. And so you work with them on building up what they want to build back up. Right. So I started a blog this past summer in June, and it's called Second Half Chronicles. And I ended up starting that because I was kind of on a down slump in my life. I'd been kind of a machine, just actually working and raising kids, really. And I kind of didn't see anything for the rest of my life. And somehow I kind of sat back and realized that my grandmothers, both of my grandmothers, passed away when they were 94 years old. So they obviously lived a wonderful long life, And I was coming up on my 47th birthday. And I just kind of sat there and I thought, wait, 94 divided by 2 is 47. Okay. I actually could possibly have another half life to live. And it just really ignited me. And just, I said, what am I going to do with it? What am I doing? And so that's where this was born. So I started writing a blog, and I still write there, but then it's morphed into a podcast like this. And I'm hoping to continue this conversation. I'm hoping people can listen. It can uplift them. They can kind of come out of whatever they might be in. And anyway, join in. So can you describe what possibly second half means to you?
Yeah. So as I'm listening to you say this, I was just thinking, that what was my second, kind of like, when did my second half start? And I would definitely say, if I had to kind of pinpoint it, that it started when my oldest daughter was a senior in high school. That was kind of like the impetus to the second half. And it was because of the fact that I had always wanted to be a mom my whole life. Like, that's what I really, really wanted to do. I've always been obsessed with babies, and I wanted my own babies, but I wanted my own babies. You know what I mean? Like, I wanted babies and then they grow up on you, and no one really tells you or prepares you for the fact that they're going to grow up and then they're going to leave. And then what are you going to do? And so I think that was the first time that I really consciously thought, oh my God, what am I going to, my job is going to end. The job that I've wanted, that I had wanted for so long, the job that I've done for so long, is going to come to an end. And it's coming up way sooner, way faster than I was ever thinking. Because I have my 3 girls, they're about 2.5 roughly years apart each, right? And then, of course, I have a son who's 6.5 years younger than my youngest daughter. But parenting one child that's like in the teen years is not the same thing as having a family of 4, right? And so I knew that time was coming to a swift end. And what was I going to do with myself? It was kind of the same thing that you were saying. Like, it's like, okay, but I still have all these years ahead. What am I going to do with them? And I wanted so badly a purpose, right? I wanted not just to like live. I didn't want to quilt for the rest of my life. I wanted to do something that had a real impact, and that was going to leave a mark in the world, and be of purpose to others. And so that's when I really started kind of trying to figure out for myself, what was I going to do with the rest of this time? So that's really when my second half, I would say, started. I'm trying to think how old I was. I was probably like right around 40.
And by the way, I just interviewed a gal last week, and I don't know, we'll hear her interview on my podcast soon. But she said, I don't know, I might be in my third half. And we just both started laughing because she's just great. She's in her 60s and she's like, has a 20-year plan of what's the next thing. And yeah. So I love it.
Yeah. I just read the other day something that popped up on Facebook, I'm sure. And it said something like, you have about 4,000 weeks in the average life. 4,000 weeks. And I was like, oh my flipping gosh, I've already spent like, I don't know, 2,500 of those weeks. Like, and you know how fast a week goes. Like, it's just crazy, but you have this time. What are you going to do? You know what I mean? What are you going to do with it? You definitely want it to have meaning. Nobody really wants to be sitting there quilting until they die. I mean, I don't. Maybe some people do.
I'm with you. We're on that team together. Okay, so why don't you go into this a little bit more? What are you currently focusing on, career or personal? So why don't you talk to us a little bit more about that? Yeah.
Ooh. Well, I am so lucky and blessed because there's no delineation for me. Like, there is for my career and my personal growth is 100% interlinked. So I'm all the time helping women with self-improvement and doing like the deep work, which means that I am always self-improving myself, right, and doing the deep work. You know what I mean? Like, you have to do it along with them all the time. And it's something that I study all the time, and something that I'm always thinking about, and something that I'm always growing towards. And so I don't actually have to separate those two, which I do think that I'm very, very blessed in that way. Definitely focusing on both.
Okay. So So let's go on to the future. The future. Where do you see your second half going? From here forward. Tell us a little bit about what you have in mind.
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, my husband and I have like 5-year plans. We have our like individual and our together 5-year plans. And I hope that I'm going to own a retreat center in 5 years. That's my 5-year goal. Because I've just started to include retreats into my coaching programs. And so I would love to just own the retreat center within 5 years. Where women can literally check in any day that they want to or need to, for some refreshment and rejuvenation, and just the same kind of learning that I kind of teach right now, but like any day they want, right? And I think just overall, this is my me era, right? So for those first 40 something years of my life, and I still do to some degree, like I said, because I still have a teenage son at home, and now I have grandbabies starting to come, and so of course I'm still family focused, but more than ever I have time and the space for me. And so this is definitely my me era, and I see the next, I don't even know, however many years I have left, that as my personal growing years. You know what I mean? So much growth that takes place as you're raising a family, so many things that your children teach you. But now it's like my time to focus on me, and focus on my marriage and just things that I didn't have as much time for in the past. And I am like loving this. This is so much fun for me. Kind of just learning things about myself that I didn't know, and you get to that stage. This is one of the really fun things I think about the second half is you get to that stage where you don't care anymore what other people
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not about that anymore. And so you're really able to grow in a different way than you were when you were younger. There's a certain wisdom of years that comes in the second half.
Yes, I hope I get some younger listeners to hear some of these things right now, because some of those.
Oh, it's something to look forward to for sure. Like it's so
amazing.
Fun.
The me years.
Yeah.
You shared with me kind of your mantra. I will live in joy and bliss. Are you?
Oh yeah.
So
that's how I live.
I love it. The me years. I love the way you put that. These are the me years.
Yeah, it's my me era.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay,
for
awesome.
Sure. I the joy and bliss thing. I think I've always been a very like a generally happy person, an optimist. But I've lived a lot of hard, nasty stuff, and so it's not that it just comes because. It's not that I just have this because I've never gone through anything difficult, right? I've had as many difficulties probably as the next person, and a lot of them really closely stacked up in the last couple of years. But I have very consciously chosen bliss and joy for myself, and that's something that I believe in so wholeheartedly, that that's who we really are at the soul and spirit level, and we can always tap back into that. It's always there for us if that's what we want for ourselves. And so that's really what I try to teach women and try to get them to that point. But you have to build this inner world that is a blissful inner world, because the outer world, as we know, is not going to serve you and give you bliss and happiness all the time. It's just not how it works. But you can live from the inside out and live in joy and bliss. And
I love that. Thank you. You know what? Thanks for going into that. I've had several people say, now what's your podcast about? And I say, well, we are celebrating people who are moving in to their second half, or they're already in the second half of their lives. And what are they doing as far as I'm looking at the positive things, because there are, and I don't want to focus on this stuff in my podcast, like the body aches and pains of getting older. You might have some financial issues, blah, 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 but that's not what this is about. And so I love that you just went into that. And that's actually your life mantra. How fun. I want to ask you one more question about your retreat. So your retreat center, like tell me just a little bit more about that. So your goal is to have a center, and are you doing retreats in between, or what do you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. So I've just kind of added retreats into my coaching, kind of like the overall scope of my coaching. And it's just about to be in my coaching package. So that's going to be really cool and really fun. But yeah, the reason why I decided that I needed to go down the retreat path is because, so in starting to work with women, what I was seeing was that I was trying to start them in a place that they weren't. And I needed to back up my truck a little bit, right? So I was teaching, like I was literally going at this like, oh, here's some tools for this, you know what I mean? And then trying to teach them that. And they were all like, oh, these are really great tools. But like, I have like deeper issues. Like we need to start in a different place. And so as I was learning and working with women and interviewing women, I definitely found that they needed to start from a different place than I was starting at. And I realized that the best possible way to serve them was going to be to have like an immersive experience where they were allowed to have a breakdown. So I'm a huge, huge believer that breakthrough comes from breakdown. Like you don't get to have breakthroughs without breakdowns. And it doesn't always mean like an ugly cry, like, you know, in the fetal position breakdown necessarily, but it has to be a breakdown of some kind. You have to break down old habits. You have to break down old thought processes, limiting beliefs, whatever it is, right? In order to have the space to put something new, like a breakthrough, and then whatever is coming after that in it, right? And I learned this because I got to go through, and I think of it as a great privilege of my life now. Of course, when I was in it, I wasn't thinking, wow, this is a great privilege. But now I can look at it as one of the great privileges of my life that in the past 2 years, actually, I would say because of the past 2 years. So there was a period of about 6 to 8 months where I ended up having 4 back-to-back breakdowns. And I'm talking about the ugly ones, right? The ugly cry, fetal position, like freaking out, thinking of all the irrational ways I could get out of my situation. And so I did that twice. 2 of my 4 breakdowns were those ugly kinds. And then I was able to I had a breakdown. I knew I was about to have another breakdown because of my physiological signs. So I was like, you know, the chest was getting really tight all the time. You know, my heart was hurting. I was getting more headaches, the physiological things that often happen. And so I knew it was coming. And I happened to have a retreat with my mastermind group at the time, some girlfriends of mine who were really, really important to me at the time and a really great support system to me. And so we already had this trip planned. And so I basically decided that I would have this breakdown that I needed during this trip, during this retreat. And it was the most amazing experience. I was able to take myself off of social media and everything, you know, no phone calls, no nothing for 3 or 4 days, spend time in this really supportive container that my girlfriends were to me at the time, ask for some specific help from like a spiritual healer that was also a girlfriend of mine, you know, do with some specific massage work and some different things like that, so that I had built this really amazing kind of container for myself, and then also put these specific things in place. And that breakdown ended up being the most beautiful breakdown, that ended up being so purposeful and so productive for me, as opposed to the ones before that were literally just like really long crying sessions, right? And so then when my 4th breakdown was coming, I was able to have another breakdown, beautiful breakdown, set myself up at my house. I didn't travel or anything for this one. And I didn't have like a whole group of girlfriends around me, but I had my safety container of my husband and my child. And, you know, these things that I set up the same way, you know, 3 or 4 days off of social media, don't contact me, all that kind of thing, set some boundaries and all these things. And so I have figured out this really amazing process to go through a breakdown, but without the ugly, right? I really have feel like I've turned it into something that I call them beautiful breakdowns. And so in order for a lot of my women clients to get to the place where they can really have breakthroughs and start really building that beautiful dream life and that inner world, they really need a breakdown. And so that is the purpose of these
my
retreats.
Goodness. Well, that is so cool. So you just set up all those tools for yourself. So when you were on your fourth one, you kind of just knew what to do. Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all this amazing stuff with us today. Okay, so we have to wrap it up, we have some sentence finishers.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so here we go. The world needs to realize that those in their second half are...
Oh my gosh. Okay. So those in their second half are at their most powerful, are at their most wealthy. They're at their best. If they're at the peak, they're literally at the peak of their lives. And this is going to be the most fun that you've ever had. So yeah, buckle up. I would
Buckle
say.
up. I love it. Okay. Here's the second one. I'd like to tell everyone in their first half too.
Oh yeah. So I would like to tell everyone in their first half to just enjoy the time that you have right now. I mean, I remember how hard it was to raise a family and to be, in that age, even if you don't have a bunch of children or even if you don't have any children, there's just so many things about that phase of life. There's things about every phase of life. There's like, remember junior high school? Worse, right? And there's things about every kind of phase of life. And I know that it can be very difficult. There's a lot of things that you're trying to navigate. But I think if you can just enjoy this time, because you're never going to get it back. It's never coming back around the same way. And so enjoy the time that you have. Enjoy what you have right now. And then look forward to the second half.
Okay, the last one is, hands down, in my second half, I will...
Oh my gosh. In my second half, hands down, I think I will live my fullest life. I will live to the fullest potential that I can possibly reach for. That is my goal right now. It's my goal to bring every woman who wants to come with me to go with me. And so, yeah, I think hands down, I will be building a massive woman tribe, and I will be in my mania.
Awesome. Okay, so, well, before we go, can you tell us where people can find you and support you? So, yeah.
Yes. And I think hopefully we'll have this in print too, because there's a lot of weird spellings, I guess. But
yeah.
So yes, you can find me on Facebook. Now, if you really want to just stalk me as a person, Facebook is definitely the best place to do that. I have my personal page on Facebook, and it's all, it's just very me. It's very like everything's all positivity, but also realism. But yeah, it's just April Little on Facebook. And then I also have a coaching professional page, and that's Paradigm Lift. And it's spelled funny. So it's Paradyme Lift. And then also, like I said, I mentioned that I'm a personal stylist as well. And that is April Zariah, and it's Zariah. And also same on Instagram. So
okay.
Paradigm Lift on Instagram, April Zariah on Instagram. And then my personal Instagram handle is ASNYN. Wait, how do you spell that? ASNUNYA. NYN. Anyway, however you spell that. Nunya. I never spell that word. I just say it a lot. Nunya. None of your business. So it's ASNUNYA55. That's my personal Instagram handle. So yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us at Second Half Chronicles today.
Yes,
and
thank you, Karen.
We'll have to say thank you to the listeners, and you guys look out there and support April, and sign up for one of her retreats or whatever. I can't wait to myself. So
just friend me on Facebook. Let's be friends.
All right. Well, live boldly. Love, Karami, and April. We'll see you. Bye. Thank you so much for listening today. Please show some love to all of us at Second Half Chronicles by giving us a follow or subscribing, and please share an episode with a friend. It would mean the world. Until next time, live boldly, love, carry me.